Hello, hello, hello. It's time for some fun with monsters. We're going to deal with modifying, fixing, remastering, doing something with a bear, or is it an owl? It's got to be one of those things. The owl bear? Okay, so I'm drawing all my inspiration for today from various versions of Dungeons and Dragons, not just D&D 5e. I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll if you want. I'm also going to go through the process of showing you how I adjust it, and so that if you need to do this yourself, you understand the process and you can just do it yourself if you want to. I suggest grabbing some food, some drink. We're going to get started. There's plenty to do and never enough time. So sit back, relax, and let's do this. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about tabletop role-playing games, and Dungeons & Dragons 5e has been on the radar for a while. It won't always be on the radar, but for now it is. And we're looking at the owlbear. Yes, you, owlbear. I know that looks like a snowy owlbear, but it's an owlbear. And does it need fixing? Does the stat block, the monster stat block for 5e need fixing? And I personally think that it does. And so I have prepared a document to work through that process, show you how to do all the maths, and then include any special abilities that I think that the owlbear should have, because it really doesn't have anything. There's nothing there. There's nothing to play with. I will make it clear, I have run the owlbear many times, and I've never changed it, and I don't understand why. I've always assumed by looking at that +7 to attack as being it's good enough, but it never has been, and I always get a strange comment from players after encountering an owlbear that I've run, and that was really not very exciting. We expected more, and how come the owlbear does not have like a screech or some sort of noise that it makes to scare you off? And I keep thinking about that, and I never actually did it. So today, we're definitely going to look at that, okay? There's something else, because I looked back at older versions of the game to see if I could find something else as well to work with. I've heard of other people trying to fix the owlbear stat block. I think I've heard people give it a roar. Yeah, we're going to go with a screech and something else for today. Anyway. Hello, so Fred Huber's a patron, Negative Space, thanks for being here. Big Kid, a moderator, thank you for being here, supporter of the channel. So, I have some questions. How would you fix the owlbear? Okay, that is my question to you. I'm going to ask you how you would fix it, and then I'm going to start doing my thing. Come back to your suggestions while I'm doing that. I have a document ready to go, so just get comfortable. I've got some green tea with me. Keep my brain fired up and moving at the speed that we require. And let's go over to that screen now. I'll work through this. I have already prepared. I've done some homework, so I did not just show up and think, okay, I'll figure it out. No, there'll be a little bit of calculations taking place, but no, I've done most of my prep like I normally do. Here is the document for today. So today's date for me is the 16th. Yes, I'm in the future. For those of you in North America. Next, let's have a look at this monster. This monster is a challenge rating 3 monster, much like the basilisk that we did last week. So we can probably work with a lot of the mechanics we were using before with this. So armor class, and things like hit points, are we in the right place? I've already figured out that the hit points are probably not in the right place. So I'm taking the Dungeon Master's Guide for D&D 5e, and there is a table in there for quick monster stat blocks, which is supposed to be essentially a guide. We know that challenge rating is not accurate, so I will have to make some adjustments, but I will be using some of the information out of here. It's on page 274. And the first thing is we have a look, and it says here challenge rating 3. And I don't want to change the challenge rating, so we're going to build it for challenge rating 3. True challenge rating 3. If you are dealing with players who are highly experienced and probably power gamers, and they could handle it. Not beginners who are completely new to the game and have never played D&D, okay? I'm not building it for that. Right, so proficiency bonus is +2. If I can go down here, +2, that's correct. Armor class says 13, and I'm good with that. It's got natural armor, let's say from its fur. It's only got a low dex of like a 12 +1, so that's fine. So we're getting two points in natural armor. I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to shift it, not going to push it up, not going to push it down. That's good enough. Next, hit points. This is where things start to unravel a little bit. It says here that this thing should have about 101 to 115 hit points. Now, the maximum hit points you get off this calculation is 91. It's not that far out, though. It's pretty close. We could just bump this dice, this D10, up by one dice, and we're almost there. So let's have a look. If I do a calculation around that, where's my calculator? Here it is, my little calculator. So we're trying to aim for just over 100 hit points maximum, and then the average will work out after. So if I go 8d10, so I go 8 times 10. No, not 8 times 1. Try again, Fred. Clear that. 8 times 10 is 80. And then, of course, I have 8 dice, and we have a kind of 3. So 8 plus 3, so we've got, okay, so we've got 8 plus 3, 8 times 3, not plus, it's 24. So it'll be 24 plus the 80, it's 104. That's right spot on where we need it to be. So that's actually going to work out. A very small change, it's not a lot. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's out by that much, so we'll just push that a little bit and make it where it needs to be. So 104 is more in line with what we wanted. And it's just over the cusp, so that's fine. And then with the number of, so yeah, what was it? It's 8 times 3. 8 times 3 is, 24, right? So 24, yes, correct, 24. Okay, so now we do the calculation for the average. So the average is 4.5 multiplied by that, and 8, 8 of them. Oh, no, it's not 4.5, it's a 10-sided dice, isn't it? So that's 5.5, 5.5, sorry about that, people. Let's try again. 5.5, clear, clear, clear. 5.5, that's the average of 10. Multiply that by 8. Why is it not clearing? It's not clearing. Okay, it's gone now. All right, let's try it again. 5.5 multiplied by 8. It's 44 plus 24 gives us an average of 68. Okay, 68. 68. So that should get us, at that point, I think it's only going to last about 1.5 rounds at level 3. If you're using average, I would use the higher end just to make sure that the thing will survive long enough for it to be able to do something. And we've got some cool things for it to do. And scaring our players is definitely one of them. So if with an inexperienced group, I think they might be able to deal with this in, like 2 rounds, and it'll be gone. I would recommend using the high end of hit points, particularly with experienced groups. Okay, now I've highlighted the strength. I am going to change some of the ability scores, and I'll show you why in a second. It's got no saving throws. If you have a look at the original stat block, there's no saving throws for this. Does it need to have any? That's the question. It is very weak in dexterity, it is very weak in intelligence, which it probably should be, and it's very weak in charisma, which it probably also should be. Should it be weak, though, in wisdom, a very common saving throw, and in dexterity? That's the question. You guys will let me know what you think. It has a proficiency in perception, which is fine. I'm all good with that. Let's keep that there. It's got no condition immunities, so the question is, should it have any? We'll come back to that. And then it's got a thing called Dark Vision 60 feet. Now, for an owl, I had thought almost immediately, perfect, makes perfect sense to me. Then I highlighted it just before I started the live stream, and the reason why I highlighted this is because I realized that there is a thing about the OWLBEAR that quite often it gets overlooked. The owlbear, even though it's got exceptional eyesight, doesn't just use its eyes, because it's an owl bear. An owl having dark vision, yes. Having very good eyesight, yes. But it's also a bear, having a very good sense of smell. And this is where I think maybe dark vision was the wrong choice and that blind sight is the right choice. Because the bear can track you down without using its eyes at all. It's got that advantage of having those eyes, but you could literally just smell to your target and away you go, have a munch time. So I think what we'll do is we'll make this blind sight. I think that's much more suitable. Blind sight is for creatures where they are dealing with things that aren't just about their eyes and how they detect things in the environment. So blind sight. 60 feet. I'm fine with blind sight of 60 feet. It does not have to be a huge range. If you want it to make it longer, you let me know. But I think that'll be good enough for now. Passive perception. Is there another skill we need to add? Have a think about that. Okay, we could add athletics if you want to make them really good at grappling. But then of course, like, why would they be grappling? We'll come back to that. Okay, so I'm going to leave the rest of that for now. Languages, don't worry about that. Skill challenge, rate, doesn't matter. We're not changing that. Proficiency bonus, all good. Right, so keen sight and smell. The owlbear has advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight or smell. This is one of the things that sort of highlighted to me, and then the fact that it was a part owl, part bear. I'm looking at this Derp, a patron and subscriber of the channel, was talking to me as I was preparing for this, and we were discussing what we needed to do with an owlbear to make it scary enough and owlbearish enough. And reckless, using, having advantage on melee attacks made an awful lot of sense, and giving, advantage to somebody else also seemed like it made a lot of sense for an owlbear. So it is reckless in the way that it attacks, opening it up for, having advantage against it, but also gaining advantage. And so this is a feature that is in yellow, but I'm very seriously considering doing something with that. Okay, have a think about that a little bit more. Next, the owlbear has multi-attack. It does 2 attacks. All it did was a beak and a claw. That's it, nothing else. Nothing more exciting. Its bonus is a +7. Now, what should be the attack bonus for a creature that is challenge rating 3? It actually says here a +4. Now, a +4 is not accurate, because your characters will have at least a +5 when they're level 3 when they face this monster. Some will have a +6 if they're playing with 2024. Some will even have a +7 if they're using ranged attacks and have archery. That's not counting spellcasters, of course, that might be a bit different. But if you're also looking at things like, the party puts up Bless, +5, +6 at level 3 is quite a common thing. It's not hard to do. Minimum dice you're going to roll on your D4 with Bless running is going to be a 1. So you could have a 2 or a 3, or you could get a 4. So it's really at a disadvantage, even if you don't even take into consideration the Bless spell. If you just take into consideration normal martial sort of progression, I'm not too worried about the spellcasters, because they're usually going to have at least a +5. So this should be at least a +5. But the problem is it's based off its strength score and modifier and its proficiency bonus, which is its score is a 20 and it's got a +5 for this. And so of course it's maxed out. And what do we get? We've got a +7, because that's how the maths works. 5 and 2 is 7. So if we're going to change this, I want to push this down. I think this is too high. There's a reason why I want to push it down. Not because I'm abiding by the table. Partly that is the reason. 1 point above 5 I think is fine. A +6, +5 would be fine for this monster. +4 would be just too low. +7 is kind of getting a bit too high. The reason is I want the claws to be able to grapple. And if you can attack somebody and grapple them, there is a huge advantage to that. That means that they are definitely going to be the meal. That'll be the meal that you have for your owlbear. So we're going to change this. And to do that, we also have to go over here and change that. So I don't often change these numbers. I only do it if I think it's going to be absolutely imperative. We can make this not a 18 but a 19. Pushing it down to a 19 would make it a +4. Okay, it's only a slight change, but the modifier changes, allowing us to have our +6 instead of a +7. That's all I'm trying to do there. Okay, for those of you who are wondering how come he seems to know where he's going with this, is because I had a long discussion with Derp about this. Derp Pickles. We had a long discussion about how to go about designing this so it would work without making it... I didn't want to take it out of the challenge rating bracket. So to do that, we have to make some adjustments. So this is what we're going to do. All right, so this here. And so we need to do something with the grappling. Melee weapon attack +6, does some damage. We'll deal with the damage in a second. And take slashing damage, 14 slashing damage. And the creature is grappled. Okay. And the creature is grappled. And the creature. And the creature is grappled. And the target is grappled. No saving throw. We're not putting a saving throw in there. I know what you're thinking. Should be a saving throw. No, there should not. Do not have attacks or features that you activate in a game if you want to play fast, where you have to do an attack roll and a saving throw, whether it's for a player character or it's for a monster. All you do is make it far more difficult to actually complete a turn for a monster or a player character. It's bad design. It will slow down the game. It's shite. If it hits, it's grappled. Simple as that. If you want it to make a saving throw, then don't use an attack roll, just use a saving throw. Okay, next. Only one creature can be grappled at a time. That's not right, is it? It's at a time. Only. Try only, Fred. Only one creature can be grappled at a time. Okay, that's what I wanted to have there. All right, so we've got that bit down. I have a screech feature down here that I'll come back to. Don't you worry, I haven't forgotten about it. So now our owlbear has the ability to grapple, and it's going to probably have a better chance of succeeding because it's going to hopefully have advantage, and it's going to have advantage on its attacks if it just decides to do a claw and a beak. And now we have to figure out the damage. Like, are we doing enough damage for this monster and the challenge rating that it is? So currently right now, we're only looking at about 24 points of damage. If the beak and the claw hit and do their damage, you're only doing about 24 points. 10 from one, 14 from the other. Is that enough? Looking at our table, challenge rating 3, and it says between 21 and 26. So the designers are kind of spot on here. 21 and 26, and we're doing 24. So the damage doesn't need to be changed at all. We can leave that as it is. Let's keep going. I want to look at Reckless, and I'm going to put this in, so I'm not going to unhighlight this. This is essentially just the reckless attack from the barbarian or any other creature. So at the start of its turn, the owlbear can gain advantage on all melee weapon attack rolls it makes during that turn. But attack rolls against it have advantage until the start of its next turn. So in other words, you get a whole round where everybody gets to wail on it with advantage. And this is what we want. We want you to be able to wail on this thing. It's got a low armor class. It's got lots of hit points. You're level 3. It's probably going to be fine. So I think that's probably the best way to go about it. Let's look at the Screech. Frightening Screech. Once per encounter. Now you're probably wondering what the hell does that mean? I should probably designate this. This is a 4E term. I was thinking of in terms of how often I wanted the Frightening Screech to be used. And in any given battle, I only want it to be used once. It would be the thing that the owlbear leads off with. Before you see the owlbear, you hear the owlbear. Before before it engages its claws, it will frighten off a group of individuals, leaving only one or two as its dinner. That's what I'm kind of aiming for. So once per combat encounter. So that is the first thing you want to do. It's going to affect every creature within 90 feet. Now, it could be 120 feet, but I thought 90 feet was good enough. Let's just do this and just unhighlight that. So each creature within 90 feet of the owlbear that can hear the owlbear must succeed on a DC 13 Wisdom saving throw. Now, the reason it's a DC 13 is because that is the DC that most of the player characters will have as well, and because they're most likely with their if you are playing a reasonable character, most characters will have at least a +1 in your wisdom, or basically that score, right? That modifier is going to be probably about a +1. Some might have a 2 or a 3, but probably at least a +1. If you've done it as a dump stat, good luck. It's usually not a dump stat wisdom. So they're going to have at least a +1. If they're proficient, they'll have another +2. So that'll mean they'll have at least a +3 in wisdom. So you're dealing with a +1 to a +3. So it's got a reasonable, between somewhere just over 50% to 50% chance of succeeding, and working, or failing in other words. So I think the DC's in line with where it needs to be, or they become frightened for 1 minute. You'll notice that this looks a lot like the roar that we used for the Minotaur. When we redid the Minotaur, this is very much like the Minotaur's roar, but this is a screeching option for our owlbear. It's also very much like the frightening presence from a dragon. Okay, a creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. If a creature's saving throw is successful or the effect ends for it, the creature is immune to the owlbear frightening screech for the next 24 hours. So in other words, it's only going to work once it does. There we go. Now, we've done almost all the things we needed to do. What we need to do is go through conditions and decide, are there any conditions that we should consider including with our owlbear? I don't think we're going to find conditions that seem like a reasonable addition, but we'll still go through that process. And then I'll go back to the chat and see what people have to say. I think this will make the owlbear stand out and a little bit more memorable. You have that screech that scares you. You have the fact that they can grapple you and kind of bear hug you. I was looking at AD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and there's definitely a reference to the owlbear kind of bear hugging you and trying to crush you. So that's why I wanted to add the grapple. Okay, I didn't want to add restrained because restrained becomes even more powerful for an owlbear. And this is obviously just the first draft of a monster. So I might change it in the future, we'll see. But I think that's a good starting point. So let's deal with condition immunities. And what conditions should an owlbear not be affected by? There's probably a couple. Let's have a look here. Owls. I'm a little owlbear, come to get you. I'm very hungry now. Here we go. Owlbear. So, condition immunities, we do not want unconscious. That would be bad. Stunned. An owlbear is not a solo monster. An owlbear will be hunting with other things. It might be found on its own, but it could be found with a mate or a little pack of little baby owlbears or young owlbears. Owlbears aren't found on their own. They're not a solo monster. I don't consider them a legendary monster. So I'm not giving them legendary actions because I don't believe it is supposed to be used as a solo monster exclusively. That's why you'll see no design for that. So stunned. No, I don't think it should be immune to being stunned. So let the monk stun the owlbear for sure. Restrained. No, I don't think you can. I think it might be difficult to restrain an owlbear, but I don't think you can say that it's immune to that condition. So no. Prone. No, I think you can knock an owlbear prone. Can you poison it? Absolutely. It's got no features that sort of suggest that you can poison it. Let's keep going. Petrified. No, we definitely want to be able to petrify our owlbear. So no. Paralyzed. Absolutely want to paralyze this thing. Forget about invisible. Incapacitated. Should never have a monster that cannot never be incapacitated. That would be a stupid condition immunity to have. Grappled. No, we definitely want you. If somebody's stupid enough to grapple their owlbear, let them do it. Frightened. Now, one of the things, if you look at AD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and you look at some of the lore around the owlbear is not frightened by things. It's fairly fearless. Like it will just go after things. And this is one of those conditions where I think we might need to add that. Now, does that mean that nothing will ever frighten it off? I think the problem is with the owlbear, it's very difficult to sort of look at this and say, you know, I mean, what could frighten off an owlbear? I suppose an ancient dragon or a dragon could scare an owlbear off. But your player characters aren't necessarily a dragon or an ancient dragon. The player characters. So I'm inclined to add the frightened condition. I think that's probably one that we need to consider. So let's take this one and go frightened. Now, for those of you who are wondering, Fred, this sounds ridiculous. I do not remember anywhere in the AD&D books or D&D ever saying that the owlbear can never be frightened. If you look at 5e's Monster Manual, you might be saying something like that. But if you look at AD&D and you look for the owlbear and you read the entry for the owlbear in here, you learn a little bit more than you did before. I did, certainly. So here we go. Where is the L-O-L? I'm having to, I didn't page mark this thing and I should have. I'm on the O section now. Here we go, owlbear. So one of the things about the owlbear that we need to be aware of is that they squeeze and bite. So this is the bear hug thing that I was talking about before. They've got the claw and the beak attack. We already got that sorted out. They drag the victim. Okay, yes, so they can drag them around, obviously, to have food. And then if we keep looking down here, it talks about the hug and doing damage as part of the hug. And I think that's fine. Okay, it talks about its young. And as we get down to the bottom here, it's got something about an irresistible hold. But here's the thing that stood out to me. They, the owlbear, in AD&D First Ed Edition, they attack prey on sight and will fight to the death. They do not run away. That is the thing that stood out to me. And I thought, okay, is that the only time it's come up? First Ed Edition AD&D. So I looked at Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Second Ed Edition. Is the owlbear say that it fights to the death? That it's very rarely actually frightened by anything? And if I go through here to O, and we're getting closer, people. O-L, Otiog, Pig. Here we go. Owlbear. Under combat. And it says here, owlbear speak their own language. I don't think we're going to worry about that. Which consists of very loud screeches of varying length and pitch. So it's not really a language, but it's owlbear noises. Okay. Keep going here. It's got a beak. Yes. It's got its claws, yes. Here we go. Owlbears are vicious, ravenous, aggressive, and evil-tempered at all times. Okay, so we've got that. Wonderful. What else do we have here? Here we go. Combat for the owlbear. AD&D Second Ed Edition Monster Manual. Or Monstrous Manual, should I say, sorry. The owlbear attacks prey on sight, always fighting to the death. Ignore morale rating for purposes of determining retreat. It attacks with its claws and snaps with its beak. Okay, I'm sold. I'm convinced. Are you convinced? I think you should be convinced. I think that is a reasonable reason to say it should not be getting frightened. It is just the sort of creature that just keeps going. Now, let's go on with the next other conditions we could add to this thing. Deafened. No, I think you could deafen this thing. Can you charm it? Absolutely. I think we should be able to charm a creature like this. Do you know why? Because players want to charm the thing and turn it into a pet. If you've got any idea what a bear is like, a wild bear, right? The idea of having a wild bear as a pet seems wonderful the first time you manage to pull it off, and turns into a disaster later on when they decide to eat you, okay? So let them charm it until the charm turns off, and then they get eaten by their owlbear. Sweet. Okay, next. Blind. Can you blind this creature? Yes, you could, but is it going to make any difference if you have blind sight? I don't even know if we need to necessarily add it. Do we need to worry about it? Because it can sense things with its sense of smell. Its sense of smell is really strong. So, blind sight. Can't see and automatically failed any ability check that requires sight. Okay, so that's fine. But it doesn't have to rely on that. It can rely on its smell. So I don't necessarily know if that's going to work. Next one. Attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and the creature, its attack rolls have disadvantage. Well, all of this is going to mean nothing if it's going reckless attack. I guess the problem is more about, are we going to have some silly rules lawyer step in here and bastardize the intent behind this? Because I can see them saying, well, it's got disadvantage if it's blinded, therefore it's harder for it to detect where we are, and therefore that crosses out, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I am tempted to think that they're wanting to try and cross out the advantage that it has. So if it had advantage because of the reckless attack, apply disadvantage, you get rid of the advantage, just flat roll. I can see players trying to use that, so we're going to add blinded. It won't matter. It's not going to affect its combat performance because it can sense you by its smell, by smelling your odory body. Okay, your smelly body, it knows where you are. So we'll do that. Okay. Now, saving throws. I haven't done anything with saving throws at this present time. And I am considering very seriously doing something with the dexterity and the wisdom. But you'll let me know what you think about that. I am still happy to have charisma and intelligence to have no saving throws for. I don't think it needs it for strength. I don't think it needs it for con. I think it's unnecessary to do that. But I am tempted to boost up the dex and the wisdom one. Yeah, let's go back to the chat and see what people have to say. I'm curious to see what people have suggested. It's taken me a little while to get here, but we're there. Dun, dun, dun. I don't know. Tell me, people, what do you think? Do you think that we're on the right track here? All right. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at these suggestions. Negative space. I've already talked about that. I need a special Kolakar attack, birds, naughty bits. I don't know, what are we talking about there, big kid? There's no way I'm making the owlbear a flying creature. I'm not putting wings on it. It's not going to happen. I'm not making it a flying creature. Not a chance. Maybe some creatures should only have a swipe and bite attack, but like I've said before, I think almost all monsters should have some kind of frightening presence. Well, this one should have a frightening presence. The lore behind the monster talks about how that screech is frightening to creatures. I don't know if I read out that section about it, but it's there in the AD&D books. It has a little bit talking about it in 5e, but it's kind of it's small section. And then it's got that, if you look at AD&D, it talks about the bear hug. So we've got the bear hug tied in with its claws. And it talks about, what else was there? The fact that it just fights to the death. It's just not frightened of anything. Is that because it's really wise or just really stupid? Or it just considers everything around it like a bear. Like a bear tends to attack everything. Because it considers everything meat. if you're made of meat, you are food. So, anyway. Next, Fred Huber, more HP, 2 claw attacks. So multi-attack is claw, bite, and a leaping attack. I don't think so. It's doing enough attack, enough damage already. It doesn't need to do any more damage. It's doing plenty of damage. You guys are going on about this leaping attack. You really want a leaping attack, don't you? Claw hits grapple. Yeah, claw hits grapple. That's exactly what it's already been done. So we've done that. It's in there. It's done. So you want a leaping attack should be an AO attack. You want an area and effect attack for the leaping attack. Okay. I mean, it would make the stat block a little bit more complicated, but I suppose we could do that. That also, they should pretty much be a list of special attacks like charge attack that almost all creatures should do. I see where we're going with this. Also, if counter during night, it is a feral hunting mode. Is more agreeable. I think that's you as a look. So big kid, what you were suggesting, like you know, at night that it be on hunting mode and during the day it's more agreeable. I think that's a dungeon master decision in terms of how you role play your monster, rather than me tying it into a stat block. I consider that to be off the cards. That is not a choice that I make, or even the design team should be making. I leave it to you guys. Okay. Dark vision, 300 feet. Owl vision, plus blind sight, 30 feet. Okay, so bear smell and owl hearing. That would make it a nasty hunter. Are you, so hello Jeff, how are you? Sorry, I didn't say. Immune to frightening, I think. Yes, we've got that. So let me think about this. You're trying to take the owl biology and the bear biology and put them together, aren't you? That's essentially what you're trying to do here. So let me just have a look and see what the monster manual says. Is the monster manual actually sort of lining it up that way? I mean, we could do that. We could go blind sight and then dark vision so that it's got more distance. And that would certainly make it better at hunting, granted. I'm not actually against the idea, Jeff, at all. I'm just curious as to what that would look like. So the black bear, its senses are... Look, the black bear doesn't even have dark vision. The brown bear doesn't have dark vision. And then if we go with the owl, if I find the owl... I mean, does this... I mean, so many times when they make these monsters that are like normal animals and so forth, they don't get them right anyway. Dark vision, 120 feet. Okay, so let's do a blind sight and a dark vision. I don't know that 300 feet is enough. Is not enough, but I think that might be too much. I think 120 feet is good enough. So 120 feet, dark vision, and I'll give it blind sight as well. Okay, so it's got the different distances. Does that make sense? So we will go dark vision. If I can get it to do this, and if I go into the stat block, so blind sight, shorter distance, dark vision, longer distance, paste, and then we have to do a comma, and I need to make that 120 feet. Okay, all right, so let's deal with the how do bears sense. What are a bear's senses? Okay, here we go. They have great senses of smell, sight, and hearing. Oh, shite. I think we have underestimated the power of the bear's sight. So we need to adjust our keen sight and smearing to keen senses, don't we? I just looked it up. The owlbear has advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight, smell, or hearing. That's rough. So that kind of goes back to, if we're doing something like that, do I need to worry about being deafened? Is deafened really going to have an effect on them? Because now we're dealing with so this is why blind sight makes sense. I'm going to stick with blind sight being 60 feet, but I've extended keen sight and smell to keen senses, because it seems like it's got a lot going on there. I think that's probably more in line to where we needed to be. Thank you for that, Jeff. You've sent us off on a little tangent here, but it's a useful one. Okay, so what happens if you are deafened specifically? A deafened creature can't hear and automatically fails any ability check that requires hearing. That's fine. That's fine. Because it's the blinded one with the attack rolls. Because I can see somebody saying, okay, well, if it's blinded, we've blinded the thing, but it's still got that sense of smell and hearing, but it still has disadvantage because it's blinded. But it won't matter in the slightest because their senses are so good. So I think we're all right with the conditions. Don't need to adjust that. Thank God for that. That's good news. And back to the chat. Let's see what else we have here. Can excrete a slippery, oily poo if being chased? Hello, Pale Rider. You are funny. Very nice. Wonderful. There's a lot of poo attacks. Give it a regurgitating rodent corpse ability. Hello, negative space. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know. Climbs roofs and waits to and wants to poo on people leaving the tavern. Oh, come on. So how to cantaloupe. Even the 5e monster manual says this creature cares nothing about a foe's superior strength, as it attacks without provocation. Yes, I know. You kind of have to read between the lines a little bit though, right? One random thing from earlier, I think 5e usually does once per day for abilities that should only get used once rather than once per encounter. Now, so I had this discussion with Derp about the Screech being once per day, and that's not what I want to do. I don't believe that your Screech runs out, just like a Minotaur's Roar runs out. It's not running out. I'm simply using it mechanically as a game mechanic. It's not that it actually runs out. What is actually happening here is that we want you to lead off with it once and use it once, because using it more than once would be suboptimal as a monster tactic. And I can't put monster tactics into a monster stat block without taking up too much space, but by adding a couple of words, I force the Game Master in the right direction. Does that make sense? So I know where you're coming from with that. I had the discussion already, but I'm making an executive decision that I only want them to use it once per combat encounter. I do not want them to use it multiple times, and it should not be limited today, because if they come across the monster again later on, they should be able to do their Screech. So that's where I'm going with this. You could do it either way, honestly. Excreting oily, howly poo into the battle. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you like that, Jeff? That's better. Okay, I think we've nailed down where we needed to go. You certainly I should have looked up what senses a bear has. I had assumed that their hearing was good, but I didn't realize it was that good. They're both extremely good. You get it? Cool. Can stalk its prey at night. Okay, well, it certainly can. It won't be a problem. Difficult terrain. I think it still should be affected by difficult terrain. Make the immunity for the Screech be 1 hour instead of 24 hours after making save. No. 1 hour. No. You can do that. When I put it up onto Patreon, okay, I'll put all these things up onto Patreon. But yeah, when you deal with it yourself, when you're doing this, by all means, change that. Like it'll be a Google Doc that you can adjust very easily, so it's not going to be hard for you to deal with that. Easy peasies. You can make those changes yourself, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it where it is. I do not want them to necessarily come across the same owlbear in the same day and have it doing the Screech again. I think the jig is up, frankly, once you've done it the first time round. Anyway, I'll put my Patreon link in here. That's where all the stat blocks go for everything else. And Discord, I suppose I should grab Discord and give you a link to that as well. I'm going to give it a saving throw. I guess primarily the reason why I try to give at least monsters a saving throw is because the player characters have a saving throw as well. And if I don't give a monster a saving throw, it's such a huge disadvantage compared to the player characters that I think it's going to hurt your effect, the effect that you can have with your monster. So the Discord is free, okay? There's a free Patreon, there's a non-free Patreon. Most of the monster manual stuff or monster stat block stuff, I think all of it actually is like $1 or something like that, I can't remember. Anyway, let's go back to the stat block, and I'm going to make a slight adjustment to this. Not a huge adjustment, just a little bit, and give it a saving throw as well. I was waiting to see if anybody would comment, and they didn't. So I'm going to go here, Dex. Now, proficiency bonus is +2, plus the 1 comes to +3. And then wisdom. Wisdom saving throw. It'll be the same. +1 and +2 comes to +3. Somebody was talking about this leaping attack. And you want to make it an area attack, and I think the easiest way for us to deal with the leaping attack, I know a whole bunch of you want to make it a leaping attack with, 2 claws and a beak and so forth. Essentially, I don't want to give it 3 attacks. Okay, I think that's too much, particularly the damage output that it's giving out right now. But I don't dispute the idea that the idea of a leaping attack is an interesting idea and kind of fun. Whether it's a charge or a leaping attack, it's kind of like the lion, right? You're trying to approach the lion's ability to leap kind of with a bear. I don't think that's necessarily what you're looking for. I think what you're looking for is what bears do. Bears tend to charge, right? Bears will charge at you. Okay, here we go. And so charging multi-attack. Multi-attack. Charging multi-attack. I'm going to incorporate it into this. I don't want to make this too complicated. Instead, what I will do is charging multi-attack. The OWLBEAR makes 2 attacks, one with its beak and one with its claws. And I had here that it's grappled, right? So melee attack, you do this, you do some damage, slashing damage, and the target is grappled. And the target is grappled. I think I need to add in knocked prone as well. But that's not a great way to word it. It's going to be really odd. Additionally, the target is grappled and knocked prone. Okay, so additionally the target is grappled and knocked prone. I think that's what you were trying to duplicate with this OWLBEAR. It's not really a leap because they don't leap around, they don't fly, but I think that is what you were trying to aim for. Is there anything else I need to say in this? How fast does our OWLBEAR move? 40 feet is more than sufficient to get the job done, if you ask me. I think that's pretty tidy. It's pretty clear. It's doing kind of what you wanted. Yeah, I don't think I need to extend the range. I don't think I need to stipulate that you have to move in a straight line or anything like that. I don't think a bear really cares about that sort of thing. The problem with bears too is, don't think bears and cats tend to climb trees? Does a bear climb trees? Whoa, a sniffer. So, can bears, and I'm sure they can, bears, climb trees? Can't climb trees. What? Myth. Can't climb trees. Yes, they can climb trees. But how good are they? Not only can bears climb better than you, but once up a tree, you've got nowhere else to go. The grizzlies aren't as adept climbers as black bears. Okay, so we're going to do something to our stat block. I can't believe I'm about to do this. We're going to give it a climb speed. Let's give it a climb speed of 30 feet. You up the tree and it just follows you. I think that's is that reasonable, 30 feet, or should I make it 20 feet? I think climbing up a tree is a fun thing for an owlbear to do as people are trying to escape. That would be hilarious. Let's go here. Let's go here. Climb. I can't remember what monsters have a climb speed. I can't even remember how I'm supposed to format it. Sorry, people. Climb speed, fly speed. Okay, it's climb and fly speed. There we go. We just need to do it this way. It's the dot and comma and then start again. Dot and comma and start again. Okay. Dot and comma and comma. Climb is 30 feet. And then dot. Is that right? It is. Okay. All right. Let's have a look and see what people think. If I hear a hue and a cry from people and they're really upset, then I know that the climb speed is too much. Strength and con save seems appropriate. You reckon making those resistant to cold? Why cold? The creature should occasionally win. I see where you're going. You want to go damage resistance to cold. This is because of the cold environment it's in. Charge might knock prone, but I don't think normal claw would do it. I think it would. I think it would. I think that's perfectly fine. Of 10 bears in one tree. 30 feet is reasonable. Okay, 30 feet, climb speed, yes, or 40 feet. Okay, we're going to go with 30 feet for climb speed, okay? I don't know that I want to put down damage resistance to cold. I know they've got fur on them, and so they're obviously, capable of dealing with a cold environment because that's what they got the fur for. But my general feeling is that an owlbear is not necessarily a polar bear. It's a totally different thing. And the snowy owlbear might be cold resistant, but I don't think the standard owlbear would necessarily be cold resistant. In terms of the insulation that it has towards extreme cold. Like, I don't want to do that, because that's what you're saying is when you're dealing with extreme cold, it can deal with that. I'm sure feathers and thick bear fur is really good insulation, but a black bear or a brown bear would not survive in the North Pole or the South Pole. They would die. Okay. They have other things going on. Chickens are fine to negative 20 degrees. Yeah. I'm not sold on that idea. I'm not really sold on that idea. But anyway. Might knock them prone. Grapple, knock them prone. Okay, I think we've got enough. I think we've locked down enough of this. I can see some ideas there. Yeah, some of them might make their way here, and some of them might not. But let's go over the changes that I've made before I lose my voice, which I'm about to. And then you'll decide whether you need to make adjustments yourself, because it's kind of part of what we do here, right? Is I do some changes and you make your own changes. Anyway, let's have a look. Right. So the OWLBEAR stat block remastered for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. I wasn't happy with it. I've never been able to get the owlbear to work quite the way I think it should be, and my players have always commented that there's no screech, so we've done a screech. So the owlbear challenge rating has not been changed. The armor class, I'm happy where it is. I didn't change the armor class for the OWLBEAR. It's fine. I did change the hit points. Now it's a 8d10 plus 24 rather than just being 9d10 plus 21, I think it was. It had a climb speed of, had no climb speed. It had just a normal speed of 40 feet. I've given it a climb speed of 30 feet because it's a bear and they climb up. The strength score has been adjusted from 20 to 19 and given it a +4 modifier instead of a +5. I've given it a saving throw to dexterity +3 and wisdom +3. Its perception's the same. It has condition immunities to being blinded and being frightened, and you'll understand why the blinded comes in later. Its senses were just dark vision 60 feet. Instead, we've given it blind sight to 60 feet because it's got exceptional sense of not just seeing, but also smell and hearing. And they've given it dark vision up to 120 feet. So they're a little bit different. They're working together. Passive perception's the same. The keen senses has been adjusted. Okay, so it was keen sight and smell. It's now keen senses. So you have advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight, smell, or hearing. So all three of these are very good for a bear. So we're going to include this with the bear and OWLBEAR. Reckless. So it's just like your barbarian. Okay, at the start of its turn, the OWLBEAR can gain advantage on all melee weapon attack rolls it makes during that turn. But attack rolls against it have advantage until the start of its next turn. And this is to duplicate the idea that it's kind of a wild, berserk creature when it attacks you. And reckless is what we want. Going to improve the chances of hitting the target for sure. I've given it charging multi-attack. The OWLBEAR makes 2 attacks, one with its beak and one with its claws. And the beak attack, it was a +7, it's now a +6. I've dropped it down a little bit. I think between a +5 and a +6 is probably fine for a challenge rating 3 monster that's dealing with characters of level 3. Its damage has not been changed for the beak. We go to the claws, and I've also put the damage, the modifier for hitting from a 7 to a 3 to a 6, and then its damage output is the same because actually it's well designed in terms of damage output as far as I'm concerned. What I have changed is when you do hit, additionally the target is grappled and knocked prone. Okay, it's a big creature, it's lumbering. You can only grapple one creature at a time. Okay, not going to happen against multiple. We've given it a frightening screech once per combat encounter, and this could be a daily ability if you really wanted, but I don't want to do that because if you want to use it again, I want you to have the opportunity to do it again. But once per combat encounter is what we'll lead off with that, and that's it. Each creature within 90 feet of the OWLBEAR that can hear the OWLBEAR must succeed on a DC 13 wisdom saving throw or become frightened for 1 minute. 1 minute's long enough. A creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. If a creature's saving throw is successful or the effect ends for it, the creature is immune to the OWLBEAR frightening screech for the next 24 hours. Okay, so there we are. That's what I would do with the OWLBEAR. I think that gives it enough of what feels like an OWLBEAR, the hug, the screech, and a few other things. And yeah, I'll put this up onto Patreon at the end of the week. Whew, we got through that. Took us a little while, but yep, made it through. You don't have to agree with everything that I've done here. You can make modifications. There's a reason why when I put these things up onto Patreon, there's a PDF version and there's an open document text version. So you can go in there and edit it yourself. Okay? I do that quite deliberately so that people can make adjustments. You don't have to have the same vision that I had for the monster. So I'm going to end this poll. We'll be back next week to do another monster. I don't know what monster that will be because I haven't decided. I'm pretty sure, I'm a little bit afraid of dealing with the Hydra, so I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the Hydra, but it'll be something. Do you think the OWLBEAR for Dungeons & Dragons 5e needs fixing? Yes, 53%. Okay, undecided, 40%. Just watching, 6%. And no, got 0 out of 15 votes. Interesting. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't expecting that. Pretty much I was expecting something like that. Anyway, that's everything I have. Okay, we're done. We're dusted. We've got it through. So thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening. Thank you for taking part in the poll. I do appreciate it. A huge thank you to all of my patrons who support me on Patreon so I can keep doing this. And as I said, I'll keep making sure to put up these drafts up onto Patreon. They'll go there and you can access them there if you want them. I will be play testing these things in the future, but not for a little while. I think at least another 2.5 months, I think it is, before I'll start play testing these things again. Because I want to do some Shadow Dark anyway. And yes, we'll be doing some Shadow Dark monsters in the future too. I just don't know. That might be a few more months off. Anyway, thank you to all my patrons. Thank you to everybody in chat who's been sharing their ideas. Fred Huber, Jeff, thank you for your input. Huge thank you to Pale Rider. How to Cantaloupe. I think I got that right. Cantaloupe. I think it is Cantaloupe, isn't it? Pale Rider, thank you for being here and your feedback. Negative Space. Who else? We had Big Hit here as well. A huge thank you to Derp for all the discussion we had with regard to what changes needed to be made to the OWLBEAR. We did a lot of this stuff in advance before I even got to this live stream. But yeah, thank you to all my patrons. And Fred, I have been paying attention. I have been paying attention. Anyway, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s.